Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hello, Assalamualaikum. Welcome back to the course of Research in ELT with me, Sri Wulandari MPD, and the topic today is understanding the concepts of research problems and hypotheses in ELT. Well, before we go on, let's do a very quick review about what research is. Okay, research is a systematic, empirical, and analytical process of collecting and scrutinizing information to increase understanding of a specific topic or issue. And as the diagram shows, there are four stages of research. The first is problem identification by defining the knowledge gap, and then the data gathering by doing systematic collection of the data by relevant information, and then we do the specific analysis of the data has been gathered by interpreting empirical evidence, and the last we can sort out the findings, drawing conclusions, and applying them to practice or record as implication. In English language teaching or ELT, research is critical for improving pedagogical theory, optimizing learning outcomes, and refining classroom practices through evidence-based insights. Yeah. Okay, that is the quick review of research. Let's go again. Well, how then we define or we distinguish between quantitative and qualitative research methods? Okay, we need to know this to choose the correct methodology because this is the very foundational to sound research design. The first is about quantitative approach. So we do the contrast here. The quantitative approach especially focuses on testing existing theories and establishing relationship between variables. It relies on numerical data, measurable metrics, and statistical analysis. Okay, so once again, this is testing existing theories and establishing relationship between variables. Okay, it relies on numerical data, measurable metrics, and statistical analysis. Okay, as you see here, the example is determining the effect of incorporating English songs on students' vocabulary retention scores. So, how the English songs being used in the teaching, and then it can increase the students' vocabulary scores. That's the example. What about qualitative approach? Where the qualitative approach aims to explore and understand the meaning individuals or groups ascribe to social or human problem. It uses textual data and thematic analysis. Okay, once again, this qualitative approach has aims, and the aim is to explore and understand the meaning individual or groups ascribe to a social or human problem. Well, the data used is the textual data, and the analysis is using thematic analysis. The example is investigating teachers' perceptions and experiences regarding the use of songs as a pedagogical tool in the classroom. So you can see here both research use the same topics, namely English songs. How the English songs is used in English classroom during the teaching and learning process. But it can be viewed from two different views. The first, if we use quantitative approach, means we can do the experiments, and know the effect, how if we use the English songs in teaching learning English in the classroom can improve the students' course in vocabulary or not. So it will be done by doing some tests and also posing some formulas to calculate whether the qualitative approach in the other side taking the same topics, but it is more to know how the teacher perceptions, how the teacher's attitudes, and then what are their experiences of using the English songs in their class, as the pedagogical tool or as teaching learning tools. So it's a bit different. We can use some kind like observation, interviews, and others. Okay, let's go on to the next. Well, still to do the same review about research. Actually, there are three essential sequences in initiating research by Creswell in 2012. He says that a systematic progression ensures methodological rigor from conception to execution. The first of all is identify the research problem. Yeah, so means you have to find or you have to pose a problem or a question. Yeah, we can define the issue or a gap in existing knowledge that the study will address. And then we do the review, the literature. Yeah, reviewing the literature means establish context and theoretical framework by summarizing prior research. We can find the core theory and also the newest academic papers related to the topics you are choosing. And then the third step is specify purpose, questions, or hypothesis. It depends on the approach you are using, quantitative or qualitative. But we still need to formulate the precise objectives that guide the entire investigation. Because here, the research is actually doing research is actually doing an investigation. So you are looking for answers for your question. So it is a very, very important to pose a question. Yeah, a question. So you have the problem, you have the question, and then you try to find the answer by using some specific tools. That is actually research. Well, this linear structure provides a critical roadmap for developing a coherent and justifiable research proposal. Well, let's go again. Well, this is the foundational research paradigms. Paradigms are belief systems that guide how researchers approach inquiry, defining what constitutes knowledge and valid evidence. You can see here, actually, there is a diagram again which has four arrows to different direction. You can see here that actually between the qualitative and quantitative, that's really different. The quantitative here has high objectivity and the qualitative is high subjectivity. And the paradigms here actually we have four. Yeah, we have positivism, interpretivism, critical paradigm, and pragmatism. Okay, we can see here in this side, in the left side, this belongs to the quantitative, which the paradigms is positivism, objective, and the critical paradigm, social change action, that is quantitative, where on the right hand is the qualitative, which has the paradigm of interpretivism, subjective, quantitative, pragmatism, mixed methods, problem focus, and etc. Next, let's go to the next. Well, then how to find a research topic? This is the systematic steps for finding a research topic. The first is identify the core interest area. Start with a broad area of passion within English language teaching, such as speaking proficiency, maybe assessment practices, or student motivation. Then the second is pinpoint gaps or problems. Identify specific practical problems in the classroom, unresolved issues in literature, or gaps in current understanding. But it depends on the policy in the faculty, yeah, which how is their research roadmap, so you need to consult your lecturer later on. Then the third is formulate guiding questions. Interrogate the problem. What are the specific issues teachers or students face? What aspect can be realistically investigated and potentially improved? A strong research topic emerges the intersection of your academic interests and a genuine researchable problem. So the problem must be researchable. Yeah, you can do the investigation on that. Okay. Next, is this one. We still need to narrow our topic for feasibility. Okay, the topic must be managed down from a broad concept to a focused specific investigation. For example, here from the broad area to the narrowed until the specific research topic. If we think about teaching writing in the English as foreign language context, this is a very broad. So we still need to narrow the focus. The first, the focus is about teaching. Let's narrow the focus from teaching writing in the Java context into teaching narrative writing skills. But we still need to make it more specific because the more specific it is, the better. Yeah, the better one. Specific research topic can be using picture series as a tool to improve students' narrative writing skills. So you see the difference, okay? The first is the broad area is about teaching writing in the AOL context, and then we narrow the focus by teaching narrative writing skills, or narrow not only writing but specifically to the genre narrative, and then we make it more specific by using exact media as a tool. So we use here picture series as a tool to improve students' narrative writing skills. So this is specific. So I believe you can try to narrow down your topic. Let's go to the next slide. Well, then how we go from the topic to the research question? We need a logical chain connects our initial interest to the specific inquiry that we will pursue in the research. The first, for example, here I take another example. The topic is about vocabulary learning strategies, which is so many over there. And I believe you know, or maybe you experience it, you use it in your classrooms, or maybe your teacher use it during your learning English. Well, the topic here is vocabulary learning studies, which is very broad, and then uh, we know based on the experience, or maybe based on what you read, you find the problem that students demonstrate limited productive vocabulary despite exposure to various learning strategies. Okay, students demonstrate limited productive vocabulary despite exposure to various learning strategies. This is the problem. Then you can start to develop the question from the problem. You can use the very basic grammar lesson here, namely question word. Let's use the question word what. What vocabulary learning strategies are reported as the most effective by high proficiency Java learners? Okay, because the problem here is, actually the students have good um, English, they have various learning strategies, but they demonstrate limited productive vocabulary. So there is a question. What vocabulary learning strategies are reported as the most effective by high proficiency level learners? Okay, then from this question, there are some tips can be used to formulate the research question. The first is to ensure a clear and logical progression from the perceived problem to the specific question. Okay, so from the problem there must be many questions from there. So try to brainstorm it and make a diagram or make a mind map about any question that can be a pop-up from the problem. Then the problem must be researchable. You must be able to collect data to address it. Yeah. So is it researchable? Yes. Yes. What vocabulary learning strategies are reported as the most effective by high proficiency EFL learners? We can ask them by doing some interviews. We can observe how they can learn the strategies of vocabulary learning. Yeah, so means it is researchable. And then the third tips is use inquiry words like how, what, or to what extent to guide empirical investigation. So actually this is the question word, the basic grammar lesson that you have to apply here to pose a question or research question here. Yeah, just add the question word. Okay. Or maybe I can simplify the explanation that after you know the problem, yeah, you have the topic, you know the problem, then try to brainstorm, try to do the list, yeah, the listing session, maybe a mind map or maybe spider web or any other things, they're listing some words of possible questions pop up from the problem that you have. So you can start to formulate the research question by doing the key formulation tips given. Next, then how to distinguish research problems and research questions? Okay, research problem and research questions actually similar, but this is not same. Okay, research problem is defined as a broad statement identifying the existing issue, deficiency, or knowledge gap that your study intends to address or fill. Whether the research questions is a specific, a focused inquiry derived directly from the problem. It is the core query that the research methods are designed to answer. So by reading the research question, we can visualize or we can understand, we know what research method are designed to answer the question. So what is the example of the research problem then? The research problem example is, you can see from the slide, despite advanced literacy training, many adult TFL students struggle with deep level reading comprehension beyond literal meaning. This is the problem. Then the questions, the research question example, what specific metacognitive strategies can be successfully implemented to improve adult EFL learners' inferential reading comprehension skills? Yes, so this is the difference between the research problem and research question. You can find out other examples. Next, the role and structure of a research hypothesis. The hypothesis serves as the engine of quantitative inquiry, providing a measurable prediction. Okay, once again, research hypothesis happen in quantitative research. Okay, and then what is a research hypothesis? It is mentioned in the slide that hypothesis serves as the engine, yeah, of the quantitative inquiry, providing a measurable prediction because it has tentative answer. A hypothesis is provisional or suggested explanation for an observation, serving as a testable prediction for the study's outcome. Okay, tentative answer. This is not exact answer, but tentative means temporary. Next, quantitative focus. Yeah, research hypotheses primarily used in the quantitative studies where researchers aim to test relationships between variables. Third, research hypothesis must be testable. It must be phrased in a way that allows for objective measurement and statistical analysis to either accept or reject it. Okay, let's go on to the example. Hypothesis examples for this topic, yeah? Testing the effect of games on vocabulary. We have two hypotheses. The first is null hypothesis, yeah, and the symbol is H and 0, H0. There is no statistically significant difference in vocabulary scores between students who use educational games and those who do not. And we have what we call as alternative hypothesis or H1. Using educational games leads to a statistically significant improvement in students' projective vocabulary scores. Or we can say null hypothesis is the negative one, yeah, with rejecting the result that is, negative, yeah. If we believe that the games is effective, means the null hypothesis believes it is not effective, yeah. Or maybe no difference, something like that, negative one, negative side. And then the alternative hypothesis is the positive side. Okay, that is the simple sentence for understanding null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis. Then what about research problem versus hypothesis? So what is the difference between these two? Okay. Research problem identifies a gap or issue worth investigating, applies to both qualitative and quantitative research, frames the broader context and significance of your study. But hypothesis, it predicts a specific relationship between variables used exclusively in quantitative research, yeah, testable and falsifiable through empirical evidence. Okay, research problem actually really helps you to define the research gap. Well, this is a concrete example. The problem statement is many students struggle to develop fluent oral communication skills in English language learning context despite years of classroom instruction. So this is the statement problem. Yeah. The problem is that actually students are still struggling, yeah, uh, in their fluency to communicate in English, even they have learned English for years in the classroom. So what is the hypothesis then? This is the hypothesis. Structured role-play activities will significantly improve oral fluency scores compared to traditional lecture-based instruction in intermediate ESL courses. This is the alternative hypothesis. So what about the null hypothesis? Yes, we still use the null hypothesis. Well, so we can say that structured role-play activities will not significantly improve oral fluency scores compared to traditional lecture-based instruction in intermediate ESL courses. Or we can say, in other words, that structured role-play activities, yeah, have no difference with not structured role-play activities applied in the classroom, yeah, to teach lecture-based instruction or something. And then we can do the research to test, to prove which hypothesis will be accepted. If it is proven that structured role-play activities can improve oral fluency, means the alternative hypothesis is accepted. But if it not if it is not proven, means the null hypothesis is accepted. So what if the null hypothesis is accepted? Is my research failed? No. Yeah, no. Your research is not failed. You just prove that such strategy does not have significant influence or effect to improve the oral fluency. And it's okay. Yeah. When your null hypothesis is accepted rather than the alternative hypothesis, that's fine. That's the research for. Okay. Let's go on. Research begins with clarity, so means every meaningful research journey starts with curiosity grounded in clarity. The strength of your problem definition directly influences the quality and impact of your analysis. The first, define with precision. A well-articulated problem provides direction and focus, preventing research drift and wasted effort. Yeah, so do it precisely. Yeah. So your effort will work. Then the second, ground in context. Situate your problem within existing literature and practical significance to establish why it matters. Okay, so you should have the strong academic basis by the core theory from the experts or the newest academic papers written in the publication, yeah, any publication from the research journals which is reliable and maybe high citated, yeah, means this will build strong, yeah, this will build strong basis why, yeah, your issue matters. The third is enable investigation. Clear problems lead to clearer research questions, better methodological choices, and more meaningful findings. Yeah, this is a quote from Charles Kettering, inventor and engineer. A well-defined problem is half solved. Yeah, this is very true. Okay, so even the problem should be well defined. Okay, and that's all for today. I hope it can bring you some, how to say, description, short explanation about what research problem and how it is different with the research question. And also there are some tips, yeah, how to bring the topic into the topic, more narrow topic, and then into the specific focus of the research, and even how to make the flow of your ideas, yeah, and then formulate the research questions. And these are three essential references you can easily find anywhere about the Presswell, and then the Cohen and Friends and Denson. Actually, these books are really, really essential for the research uh, courses. That's all for today. Thank you for having me and listen. So just if you have any question, do not hesitate, put it in the comment section, or you can employ also the group chat. I'll be happy to answer. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. See you next week.